Snow drifted in slow, trembling spirals, catching the glow of the streetlights as if the night itself held its breath. The city was quiet, too. Quiet for this hour, when the little girl stepped toward him, her boots sinking into the fresh powder. Her small hand trembled as it reached for his coat sleeve, barely brushing it, but enough to stop him as if someone had grabbed his heart. He turned, puzzled at first, then stunned when he saw her face, the flushed cheeks from the cold, the tear-glossed eyes, the way she held herself like she was trying not to fall apart. "Sir, my mom didn't come home last night." Her voice cracked on the last word, a fragile sound swallowed instantly by the winter air. He knelt in front of her, the cold seeping through his tailored suit, but he barely noticed. The girl was shivering, not just from the cold. It was the kind of trembling that came from fear that had been building for hours. Her fingers were curled into fists at her sides, as if even touching someone might break her. He softened his voice, lowering it to match her height, hoping to calm the panic he saw building in her eyes. "Tell me what happened," he said, though part of him wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. She lifted her face slowly, snowflakes melting on her lashes. "She went to work, and she didn't come back. I waited and waited. It got dark." Her throat tightened. "I got scared." Something in him, something he'd buried under years of boardrooms, deadlines and power, twisted painfully. He wasn't supposed to feel this much. He wasn't supposed to care this quickly, but the sight of her alone in the freezing night, with no one else in the world to listen, hit him harder than any crisis he'd ever faced. A gust of wind blew against them, scattering fresh snow around their feet. The street behind her looked endless, the kind of dark that threatened to swallow anyone who stepped too far. She kept glancing over her shoulder at it, as if afraid the emptiness might pull her in next. He reached out carefully, offering his hand, not wanting to startle her. "Come here," he murmured. Her tiny fingers hesitated, then curled around his. And in that moment, with her hand fitting into his like something unbearably breakable, he felt a pulse of urgency slam through him. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. And for reasons he didn't fully understand, it had suddenly become his responsibility. As he stood with her in the falling snow, the world around them blurred into a quiet, cold haze. All he could focus on was the little girl gripping him like he was the last person left who might help her. And even though he didn't know her name, didn't know her mother, didn't know what waited beyond the darkness ahead of them, he knew he couldn't walk away. They moved down the sidewalk together, the snow crunching beneath their mismatched steps. His long, steady stride slowed to match the uncertain shuffle of her tiny boots. The city lights seemed dimmer here, swallowed by the night, leaving only the sound of distant traffic and the whisper of wind threading through the bare trees. She held his hand tightly, her grip far too strong for someone so small, as if letting go meant losing the last safe thing she had. Her oversized coat dragged at her sides, the hem stiff with frozen slush. Every few seconds she glanced up at him, not speaking, just checking that he was still beside her. He noticed how she hugged her worn backpack against her chest like a shield. He wondered how long she'd been walking alone before she found him. The thought made something cold coil deep in his stomach, colder than the winter air biting through his coat. "Which way is home?" he asked gently. She pointed with her mittened hand toward the dim street stretching ahead, lined with old brick buildings and balconies dusted with white. Her breath came out shaky, forming small clouds that drifted upward and vanished. She looked too young to be carrying fear this heavy, too soft and innocent for a night that felt this threatening. As they walked, she whispered fragmented pieces of her night, how she waited by the window until the moon moved across the sky, how she called out for her mother until her voice hurt, how she finally stepped outside because the silence in their home felt scarier than the dark streets. He listened without interrupting, each word threading deeper into him, tightening the knot in his chest. He kept scanning the quiet buildings, every shadow, every parked car. His instincts, honed from years of navigating crises, flared with the sense that this wasn't just a simple case of someone running late. The air itself felt tense, like the night was holding back something it didn't want them to see yet. When a gust of wind pushed against them, the girl stumbled, and he steadied her with a hand on her shoulder. She looked up at him, eyes reddened, trying to be brave, and he felt an unexpected rush of protectiveness sweep through him. He wasn't sure when it had happened, maybe the moment she first grabbed his coat, maybe even earlier, but he realized now he was no longer just walking her home. He was preparing for whatever waited at the end of this snow-covered road. He tightened his grip on her small hand, promising to himself quietly, fiercely, that he wouldn't let anything else happen to her. Not tonight, not ever. The building loomed ahead like a tired giant, its windows dark except for a single flickering bulb in the hallway. The girl hesitated at the entrance, her small breath catching as if she already sensed the wrongness inside. He gently urged her forward, but her fingers tightened around his, almost painfully, forcing him to slow down. Snow had blown into the doorway, dusting the floor like no one had bothered to close it properly. That alone sent a warning shiver down his spine. Inside, the air felt colder than the street outside, stale and heavy, as though it had been holding secrets for too many hours. The girl's soft call, "Mom?" echoed through the narrow hall, bouncing off peeling wallpaper and worn carpet. No answer. Just the lonely hum of an old radiator that struggled to warm anything at all. She led him to their apartment door. The wood slightly cracked, the lock crooked as if forced. His pulse spiked. He crouched a little, scanning the edges. Fresh splintering. Pressure marks, signs of someone pushing their way in. The girl didn't understand, but he did, and it made the cold in his blood deepen. She pushed the door open, stepping inside with a brave front that shattered. The moment her eyes landed on the overturned chair, her breath hitched. Her hand flew to her mouth. He followed her gaze, mess scattered across the floor. Curtains half ripped from their hooks, a lamp knocked over. Not chaos from a rush or accident. Controlled, deliberate searching. He stepped inside slowly, each footstep cautious, trying not to disturb anything. The girl's voice wavered as she whispered, "It wasn't like this morning. It wasn't." Her knees bent slightly as though the sight itself took the strength out of her. He placed a steady hand on her shoulder, grounding her. "Stay close," he murmured, though he was the one fighting the sharp unease climbing up his spine. He scanned the room with the instincts of a man who'd negotiated danger more times than he could count, but never like this. Never with a child trembling beside him. His eyes caught something under the couch, a faint glow, barely noticeable. He crouched, reached in, and pulled out a phone with a cracked screen. Her mother's lock screen photo glowed faintly through the shattered glass. Missed calls. One from an unknown number that kept flashing as the phone tried to restart. The girl gasped softly. "That's Mommy's. Why is it here?" He didn't answer. Couldn't. A heavy realization settled into his chest like a weight he wasn't prepared for. Whatever had happened here hadn't been an accident or a simple delay. It was worse. Much worse. A sudden thud from upstairs made the girl jump violently, her fingers clawing at his coat sleeve. He pulled her close, instinct overriding every thought. His heartbeat pounded in his ears, and the room seemed to narrow around them. He knew then someone had been here, and someone might still be. He held the girl close, feeling her tiny heartbeat, racing against his chest as the house settled into a terrifying stillness. The thud from upstairs faded, but the echo of it pulsed through the walls like a warning. He didn't move at first. He listened, every muscle tight, breath held, eyes fixed on the staircase where the faintest shift of shadow hinted at movement. But then the silence swallowed everything again. Too quickly, too completely. The girl's fingers curled into the fabric of his coat. Trembling so hard he felt it through the layers. He lowered his voice to a whisper only she could hear. "We're leaving. Right now." She nodded, though her whole body shook as if her fear had rooted itself deep inside her bones. He adjusted his grip and lifted her into his arms, her small frame folding against him like she was trying to hide from the world. As he stepped backward through the wrecked room, his eyes swept over every corner, broken glass glittering in the low light. Cabinet doors left open, drawers half pulled as though someone had searched with a purpose. Her mother hadn't just gone missing. Someone had come for something. Or someone. A gust of winter air rushed in as he opened the front door. The contrast between the cold outside and the stale tension inside hitting him like a slap. Snowflakes swirled around them, catching in the girl's hair as she buried her face against his shoulder. He could feel her breathing, too fast, uneven, scared to the core. On the street, the world suddenly felt huge and exposed. He scanned the shadows between parked cars, the dim glow of the street lamp stretching over patches of untouched snow. Whoever had been inside could be anywhere, watching, waiting. The thought twisted something deep in his gut. His jaw tightened as he pulled out his private phone, shielding the girl from the wind with his coat. His voice when he spoke was low and controlled. but beneath it ran a current of urgency he hadn't felt in years. I need a security team at this location. Immediate response. Full perimeter sweep. And get a medic here, just in case. The dispatcher responded instantly. His status made things move faster. But right now, even that didn't feel fast enough. The girl lifted her head, her cheeks red from cold and fear. Is Mommy okay? She whispered. Her voice so small he almost didn't hear it over the wind. He looked at her, this trembling little soul who had walked alone through the night looking for help, and something inside him clenched hard. He could lie. He could promise blindly, but she deserved more than that. So he gave her the only promise he knew he could keep. I'm going to find her, he said, the words firm, fierce, almost a vow he carved into the frozen air. I won't stop until I do. Her eyes shimmered, a fragile mix of hope and terror. She leaned back into him, clinging as if she believed him completely. And in that moment, with the sirens growing louder in the distance and snow settling on their shoulders, he felt the shift deep inside his chest, an unspoken understanding that he was no longer helping out of obligation. He was in this personally, entirely, and he would not fail her. The sirens grew louder until their red and blue glow painted the falling snow in pulsing streaks of color. He stepped toward the curb, holding the girl protectively against his chest, as the first security vehicle skidded to a stop. The night moments ago so eerily quiet, now hummed with urgency, doors slamming, boots crunching through snow, radios crackling with tension. But even with the sudden rush of movement, he felt the girl's small arms stay locked around his neck, as if letting go meant the world might swallow her whole. A head of security hurried toward him, breath steaming in the cold. Sir, what's the situation? The CEO didn't waste a second. He angled the girl away, shielding her from the harsher tones, and handed over the cracked phone. Her mother's missing. The apartment was searched. Someone was inside. His voice was steady, but underneath it coiled a barely contained fury. The officer's expression hardened. Immediately, he signaled his team, who spread out toward the building, weapons lowered but ready, flashlights slicing through the darkness like sharp beams of truth. The girl peeked over the CEO's shoulder, flinching with every crunch of boots on snow, every echoing shout from inside her home. He felt her fear vibrating through her, a trembling rhythm against his chest. It's okay, he whispered, tightening his hold. You're safe now. I've got you. The words came out rougher than he meant, and instinctive, promise fueled by protectiveness that felt far too deep for someone he had only just met. But he didn't question it. He couldn't. One of the search team returned quickly, face grim. Sir, the apartment shows signs of forced entry. Clear signs of struggle. No one inside now. His stomach dropped. He already knew it, but hearing it aloud made the night feel colder, sharper, dangerous in a new and personal way. The girl's fingers dug into his coat, her breath catching as she tried to understand their hushed words. He crouched slightly, letting her feet touch the ground but keeping her close. Snow settled on her hair, melting into tiny droplets that slid down her cheeks like stray tears. Her voice wavered. Is Mommy hurt? He knelt in front of her, his hands gentle as they rested on her upper arm, steadying her. I didn't see any blood, he said softly, carefully. That means she had a chance to get away, or someone took her for a reason. The hope in her eyes flickered. Fragile but alive, he leaned closer, lowering his voice to a promise carved from steel. And I'm going to find out which one. I won't let anything happen to her, or to you. She nodded, swallowing hard, then reached for his hand again, seeking not just safety but trust, connection, an anchor in a night that had taken everything from her. Her fingers slid into his, small and trembling but holding on with all the strength she had left. Behind them, the building lights flickered. Officers moved methodically, securing the area, calling in reinforcements, pinpointing possible escape routes. But even with all the noise, all the chaos, the CEO's world felt narrowed to a single focus. This little girl and the promise he had just made. As more lights flashed across the snow and the wind pushed against them with biting cold, he lifted her into his arms again, keeping her warm inside his coat. She rested her head against his chest, exhausted, scared but no longer alone. And as he walked toward the awaiting vehicle, he knew deep in his bones that finding her mother wasn't just an obligation. It was now his mission, his responsibility, his vow.